Myrrh. The Middle Ages, also known as the Dark Ages, were a time of war, famine, and pandemics. What came after set the scene for modern civilization, which was the Renaissance era, which birthed a lot of the thinkers, artists, and other people that we know today. History repeats itself, and the digital Dark Ages are among us, but there is a light on the horizon. The digital Dark Ages are a time of distraction, closed-mindedness, and cheap dopamine. We've lost touch with the belief systems that used to give an individual a sense of certainty and a positive outlook on the world, but those systems have we've lost trust in them over time. A lot of people have experienced this, and if we don't take it on ourselves to create our own sense of purpose and order our lives in alignment with that, then it will be difficult to maintain the little sanity that we have left. So as we talked about in 2 videos ago, you need a vision or purpose for your future, and you need a structure or hierarchy of goals in order to frame your attention towards that and eliminate distractions, and that is how you create an endless source of good dopamine, is by endlessly solving the right problems. So if you don't do this, you'll find solace in a few things. The first is the societal machine. The clear path of going to school, getting a job, and retiring happily is very enticing. So most people relinquish their freedom to choose and their free agency, their autonomy, and end up just doing what they're told. The second is momentary pleasures. Deep down, we know that we aren't making the right choices. Our future self is looking down on us, and we know this, and it makes us feel bad about our decisions, but we don't know how to. We get trapped in this little mental loop of not knowing what to do. And so to numb ourselves from this pain, we drown it in momentary pleasures. We binge Netflix, we go out and drink, we do a lot of things to escape confronting our problems. And while I continually say that there's nothing wrong with these things, there is a lot that can be wrong with these things if you aren't conscious of the choices you are making. So the third is modern distractions. And distractions are not just digital. Distractions are every single thing that does not align with your purpose or vision for the future. And if you don't have a vision, how are you going to filter what is distraction from what is worth focusing on? And so the catalyst to all of these distractions is you. It's your thoughts, beliefs, identity that has been forged over time. That is what keeps our mind narrow and focused on what we know rather than diving into the unknown. And so all 3 of those things that we just talked about can be grouped together under one big thing, which is the greatest trap of the 21st century, closed-mindedness. The most dangerous habit young people can form is closed-mindedness. You are capable of more than you've been told you are. So closed-mindedness is your inability to see beyond your narrow perspective in any situation. And if your perspective only shines a negative light on the situation, that's even worse. Let's take the social media comment section, for example. I'm not necessarily talking about mine. We all go to like Reddit and Instagram, and sometimes we get caught in the comments, and you just can see that it's very common for someone to completely miss the point, misinterpret it, cherry pick something, spin it in a negative light, and end up leaving something that just it creates a lot of negativity in other people and turns people away from what's actually being said, what the true message is in that thing. And so it's when people read something like a polarizing political post online, and then they get offended, and then they go on to leave a comment that conveniently leaves out the perspective that would prove their own wrong, right? So they give their perspective, which is completely goes against the other one, and then those clash, and there's no common ground found. That's closed-mindedness, is when you don't seek to find common ground, you seek to prove others wrong rather than proving yourself wrong. And so this alone is, you can see where I was saying how closed-mindedness kind of encapsulates everything else, like distractions, momentary pleasures, etc., because this is just another embodiment of the quick fix mindset. It's a quick fix, like to win the game of that political battle. Let's say a political post on social media, and someone says something that you don't like, you get that quick hit of whether it's dopamine or just a bad feeling that you are addicted to. That's why you're making the post. Why else would you make it? I think you can zoom out and realize that your post is doing absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. You're wasting your time, and time is fucking important. The universe is an infinite song. Universe, one song. So songs are symbolic of stories. You can assume like a song has a story-like structure to it, and that also reflects in games. And that's why we enjoy these things so much, is because of the highs, lows, the conflict, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, the happy ending, all of that stuff. We find a lot of interest and meaning in those things, and that's what makes life enjoyable. That's why people get obsessed with video games. That's why people that can see business as a game get obsessed with business. That's why people can zoom out and create a game out of a certain situation can find enjoyment in most situations in life. And the problem here with closed-mindedness is that we fail to see this overarching story, right? Even just a big story. We take the smallest story possible, like the conflict going on, and completely ignore the rest of what's going on from a universal perspective. And then we take that and act like it should make sense when clearly it's not going to. And so if you take like a negative part of a battle, or you take the lowest low of a story, like if you're in a low point in life and the only thing that your mind can see is that low point in life that you're at, and you don't understand that after a low comes a high, and even before a low comes a high, and then up, down, and there's going to be a climax eventually and all of this other stuff, you're going to get trapped in that negative thought loop, and it's not going to be fun. So let's start expanding our mind, right? That's what we have to do to open our mind beyond closed-mindedness, and understand that none of this happens overnight. You're just not going to have a monk-like perspective after you've been very closed-minded for a while. It takes time and self-development. That's why it's called development, is because it takes time. But first, we have to understand a few signs of closed-mindedness, right? Because then we can become aware of them. We can become aware of the problems or mistakes, and then be able to improve those. So awareness begets improvement, because we need to become aware in order to actually improve it. And then improvement begets awareness of the next but better problem to solve. So the first sign that you need to become aware of is assumption and expectation, mostly in the negative sense, very much so in the negative sense, right? Creating a vision for your future is kind of like a positive assumption or expectation. In this case, negative assumption and expectation can be extremely dangerous. So your reality is determined by your conditioning. That is, your identity houses your perspective, and your perspective houses your beliefs, thoughts, and prior experiences, most of the time that you hold as truth. And for most people, this perspective or worldview is shared with their parents, teachers, and other people. So if all you know is school, work, retirement, then your behavior will follow that, because the conditioning, it creates limits on what you think is possible. And so if you don't know a possibility other than school, work, retirement, then you aren't going to act in a way that is going to actualize that vision, right? It just doesn't make sense. And so what these are expectations for your future that you are going to work in alignment with, right? So if you have a vision for your future that you may think is positive, but overall, because you haven't zoomed out and seen the consequences of following that path, then it's a masquerade. It is negative and not conducive to what you actually want out of life. And so that web of expectations or assumptions in your mind are eventually going to lead to behavior that actualize those things. So the second sign you need to become aware of, whether it be in yourself or in others just through observation, especially on social media, you can notice a lot of this stuff on social media, is having a selfish perspective. Overly selfish perspective. What you have to realize is that everyone is acting towards a goal when they are acting, right? And this goal can be conscious, subconscious, or unconscious. And for most people, it is in alignment with their survival. They're working to survive something. And so if humans survive on a conceptual level, they're going to work to survive their identity or maintain their narrow perspective. And therefore, they're going to act in a way that preserves their self-image. And this isn't hard to spot, right? So to bring up the political example again, if people are diehard Republicans or diehard Democrats and you see them arguing online, and some people are willing to die over that belief, they're willing to die over it. A split black and white party rather than pulling truth from both and having a truly holistic perspective on politics from a standpoint of consciousness. And the same thing reflects in business, right? You see people arguing which business model is the best, and if I identify as a freelancer, or even if I am pushing the one-person business model ideology, in a sense, in some cases it could be, I personally try to make it very clear that it is for a person with a specific set of goals, so they can align their goals with that and see if it's something they want to do. But in many cases, what people do, and I'm a victim of this myself, I do it too, is the fact of people promoting theirs as the best business model there is, right? So freelancing is the best business model, and mostly freelancers say that because that's what they've done, right? Or agency owners, that's what they've done, so they promote it as the best. That's what they know how to do, so it only makes sense, right? Same thing with e-commerce, startup, software, whatever it may be. And so if you want a more holistic version of truth, or you want to overcome this selfish perspective, then you need to practice transferring consciousness into that person. You need to have empathy. You need to understand, okay, or you need to at least piece together a positive assumption for what they are acting in alignment with, what goal they're trying to achieve. And this will shine light on a lot of stuff. But then you also have to be willing to prove yourself wrong, right? Because this is a sign of closed-mindedness in yourself. So if you are the one that is pushing certain ideas as law, then maybe it's time to prove yourself wrong and go and study the opposite perspective, right? Have empathy for another person that is pushing the opposite of what you're saying, and then you can have both versions of truth, and then you kind of unlock this wisdom or intelligence that allows you to navigate between those two domains. And as you do more and you collect more consciousness in a sense and understand more perspectives from other people in alignment with the goals that they're acting towards, then things become a lot better, and you have so much more firepower to make your own thing work in a better, more holistic way. And you also have to understand, like, even from a belief system perspective, is that some people with beliefs in this Western world would literally be executed if they go and push those beliefs in another country, right? And they don't care how right you think you are. And from the perspective of the universe, like if you're to zoom out and see things from the division and unity and self-reflection that the universe has for itself, then you can see that, one, everyone is right and everyone is wrong. It's all relative. This reality is subjective. So the third sign of closed-mindedness is missing the point. And a lot of the times this comes from literal interpretation of words, right? If I were to read the Bible and I'm not a Christian and I just want to get something from it, right? I want to understand it. Then reading it from a literal perspective, like word for word, this is what happened, that's probably going to turn me off, right? But if I read it from a metaphorical perspective and understand that it's symbolic of some form of truth, then I can actually learn something from it. So when I was first reading The Power of Now, I believe back then I identified as an atheist at the time. And so when I read that book, whenever he would mention the concept of God per se, then I would get this weird feeling in me, but I really tried to overcome that, right? I knew that there was something that could help me in that book, and so I tried to see past that, and with time, I kind of dissolved or worked past that problem in my life. And so missing the point also goes back to what we talked about taking a certain piece of the story or the game or the universe, like one song that is being played, right? Because you wouldn't take one lyric from a song that you spot right now, or a word that I'm saying, or a sentence that I'm saying, take it out of context. So take the lyric out of the song and expect it to make it sense on its own. You have to understand the goal that people are working towards. And so the goal with this video is to help you open your mind to newer perspectives. And so if you take something and you close your mind, that's missing the point. And so the fourth sign of closed-mindedness is vision avoidance. So we discuss having a vision for your life in almost every video, but because it's so important and your vision isn't clear in an instant, you need a constant reminder, and it's very uncertain, right? It's an uncertain path to take in life. And so people don't want that uncertainty. So they repress their potential in life. They know that there's something more, but they never go down the rabbit hole of curiosity. They never break out of the things that they're told to learn, or the things that are just handed to in front of them, or they're scrolling memes rather than searching for something that can actually help them in life. And so the instant gratification of that feels good now, but hurts later, when your vision is the opposite, where it hurts now and feels good later. And so you want to flip this switch. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. You put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. There's more to that quote, but that's from Bruce Lee. Everyone knows that quote. But how many have sat with that quote and actually thought about it? What's its meaning, right? If you were to sit with that, do you actually have a practical application for that, right? In this case, with opening your mind, that's what we're talking about. The cup is the perspective, and your consciousness is being structured by that perspective. And there's a reason behind this, why it works, is because this is usually when peak experiences are most notable, right? When you tap into the flow state, it's because your consciousness is ordered and you have clarity on what's going on there. You have the proper structure or cup to fill your consciousness with. And so that's one version of a peak experience, but other peak experiences seem to happen when you open your mind beyond all limitation, form, or belief or anything, right? So when you're meditating, you're usually trying to increase the gap between your thoughts and kind of open yourself to the world. And so with that, you have to understand that open-mindedness comes in stages. So an example in no specific order. Stage 1, you believe religion is the only path to salvation. Stage 2, you believe religion is mind control. Stage 3, you believe religion has deep truths when interpreted from a metaphorical lens. And so in business, this is similar. Stage 1, you believe freelancing is the best business model. Stage 2, you believe business models are scams. Stage 3, you believe that all business models hold truths that can be used to improve the one that aligns with your interests. Oh, and wow, would you look at that? A course promotion that aligns just with that. Check out Digital Economics, link in the description. It's a holistic business course that aligns with your interests. And so some of those stages of perspectives and open-mindedness are more open-minded than others. And the ones that are more open-minded are the ones that lead to more success, because the benefits of open-mindedness are obvious. Deeper intelligence, heightened creativity, less reactivity, fulfilling relationships, novel content ideas if you're a content creator, and other things like artful navigation of what would be polarizing domains like politics. So let's finally dive into some practical aspects to start opening your mind. The first is critical thinking 101. You have to hold all thoughts, ideas, and opinions in the realm of possibility until filtered through direct experience. You do not have to prove something right or wrong in an instant. You are allowed to let things marinate in your mind without identifying with any side of the argument. And I don't care how many people make it seem very urgent that you have to pick a side and you have to choose something very quick. You don't. So the second thing is to work towards a more holistic identity. Your identity houses your perspective houses your beliefs, and your beliefs influence your thoughts, emotions, and actions. So if we adopt an identity that is greater than us, our mind or perspective fills that as such. It expands as such. And it can only expand as much as the things that we identify with. And this is how you develop your ego over time, is by slowly adopting a higher identity. Because if you think about it, so the ego works to survive on a conceptual level, as we always talk about. But if we identify with something higher, right, then we're going to work to survive that identity. So if we identify as our highest self and the things that they would do, then we're going to work to survive that higher self, and our thoughts, emotions, actions are going to follow that. And so I don't really like talking about this because it can get very confusing, especially to like biblical ideologues, where I know a lot of people like Alan Watts has once said that you are God. I know other people have said that as well. Many people actually have said that, but it always gets that lashback, right? The closed-minded lashback of like, you can't be God. God is the all-knowing and the omnipotent. And this could be an entire topic, but a good way to approach it, at least at the beginning for this, is that if you adopt the perspective of God, right, as a creator, and we aren't talking about the Christian notion of God here, who is like a man in the sky. We're talking about the universe and its processes and consciousness and form and division and unity and creation and destruction and understanding and seeing the world from a big picture while acting from this vessel that you are. And so we're not talking about the Christian notion of God. We're talking about what is like Brahman, or the absolute, or infinity, or source, and things like that. This isn't only based on religious stuff. So if you're on a sports team, the Snowbirds as an example, and you identify as a snowbird, which you should if you're on the team, then the spirit of that team will form a collective ego that the team works to survive. And that spirit will be spread throughout fans, and it will have a decent impact on how the game goes when you are acting as a team and that spirit or energy is there. So the same is true with identifying with a corporate job, where your perspective is limited to that job. And the same thing with, let's say, a family, right? And now I'm not saying that these things are bad. I'm saying that you should become aware of them. You need to become like water and the cup and the water, right? You should be able to flow and pour into different cups and understand them without staying static in one, without freezing into one cup. And please understand that we're identifying in mind or spirit here, not physicality or intellect. Because if you want to identify as something as hyperlimiting as like a toaster oven or an Apache attack helicopter, I think those memes are funny too, but I'm just saying, then be my guest. Or go back to the part of the video where I talk about intentionally missing the point and taking a part of the argument out, unless that point is humor, of course, because humor is useful and I don't see it doing any harm unless people intentionally miss the point. And so if you are the universe, right, you adopt that perspective from a mental level, then your petty human problems tend to lose their weight, right? They kind of lose their impact on your life, and then you're able to act from a better perspective, from right here, right? Think big, act small. And so you have to understand that we're not identifying with the universe for things like nobility or status or something else that is very selfish, right? We're doing it to improve our decision making in a way that benefits more than ourselves. And that is seeing beyond your survival and thinking twice about going from one pleasurable distraction to the next. So another example is like if you love beer, right? And that's your life's work. You just love beer. You absolutely love it, and you want to spread your passion for that beer to the world. Then it would make sense that your life's work is to start up a brewery and create the best beer and pass it along to the customers, and then they pass it along to someone else, and everyone's happy having a beer at your place, right? That is a very worthy thing to do. Even though alcohol is involved, you're still spreading a positive message, a positive vibe, and you are seeing your work for more than just like a means of income. And so if you love something like philosophy or self-development or something else that can be benefited in the creator economy like we always talk about, and you're very passionate about that, how are you going to spread that passion to other people through your writing rather than just treating it as a means to income? So step number 3 is collecting consciousness. I want you to understand that all of this, everything that we talk about, think of it on like a decade-long timescale. This isn't for the quick fix, people. That's why my videos are a bit longer and sometimes they're a bit rambly, is because I know that the people that get the value out of them aren't going to click off simply because I didn't stroke their little ego or pleasure reward center for 5 minutes when I went on a rant. And also understand that I'm not an almighty guru that knows everything and is going to give 100% accurate advice all the time. This is my level of understanding, and it's what I'm working towards. So to collect consciousness, you need to be able to transfer consciousness and seek to understand, not judge. And this isn't anything like unique to humans either. A predator, as an example, can transfer consciousness into its prey and assume its next moves. It's not necessarily planning, it just knows like, okay, I can assume what mistakes it's going to make and I'm going to position myself in order to get the prey. And so if a predator can do this, then a marketer can do this, or you can do this, right? So marketers are very good at this, or even just content creators or something in general, is because they understand human psychology. That's what you should study in order to do this better, is human psychology, marketing, sales, in order to understand the minds of other people and be able to transfer consciousness so that you are able to help them in a beneficial manner with your content, products, services, life's work, whatever it may be. And so this is really like a big hack for, let's say, a writer, right? I talk about this in my course, The 2-Hour Writer, for content writing, but transfer your consciousness into your reader or the viewer in this sense, right? Are they going to like, engage, and share with the content? Like, have you even thought about that, about how your content is going to be received by the other person? And if it's not good and you don't think they're going to share it, how can you make it better? And so what about that driver that cut you off on the side of the road or on the road and then you got angry, right? Can you transfer your consciousness into them and assume something positive about what they're doing? What if their mother's in the hospital and they're trying to get over and get off on the exit and you're over here worried about your comfort? Oh, I have to step on the brake a little bit to let this guy through. Oh my fucking God, I'm gonna die. And so again, focus on the big picture here. I feel like a lot of people get wrapped up in the little technical details with all of this. We're not trying to transfer consciousness so we can like steal their knowledge or what they know or the words in their mouth or the way they articulate things. We want to understand the essence or experience of the situation at hand. We want to note patterns, and we also want to understand their actions and observe the outcomes. Because then from those things, when we understand those things and we collect that consciousness with time, then our decision making improves tenfold. And so just to touch on that again, is because this is always a common problem. I want to just nip it in the butt right here. Like, it's obvious that you can't, like, if you're if you transfer consciousness, like we're saying, into someone that speaks a different language, you're not going to learn the language, right? You're not going to know the language. We're talking about understanding here, not knowledge. Those are a different thing. Knowledge is like built up. It is a mental construction. Understanding it is an inherent part of human consciousness. So we are seeking the essence beyond mere human existence. It's like how strength not only reflects in a bodybuilder, but it reflects in the universe as being able to like hold up the world with a gravitational constant, like just holding it randomly, or in the strength of a bear, or in the strength of a mother, right? There are patterns that you can notice that, again, going back to signs of the closed-minded and literal interpretation, that you can understand from a metaphorical lens. All understanding is metaphorical. So step number 4 is to pause and question. So here's a challenge for you, is to study the exact opposite of your beliefs. If you're a vegan, study carnivore. If you're a freelancer, study a creator or a personal brand and how they get clients. If you're a Christian, study atheists. And you want to approach the situation by trying to prove yourself wrong. This is very difficult and you will experience an ego reaction, but the people that can work through this will see so much results and a lot more peace in their life. And you will feel physically threatened. You will have a physical threat response as you are reading these things. Become aware of that too, and how just absurd that is. And so when this reaction happens, right, because this is kind of like a way to force a reaction in you so that you can become aware of it, and then you can seek to understand it and then improve it and overcome it. And so questions are how you deepen understanding, right? So I want you to pick a business, a religion, a political ideology that you disagree with, study it, wait for the reaction, and then walk through these questions. Is there something I can learn in this situation? What goal are they working to achieve? Does that align with my goals? And does it matter if not? What is the context they are saying this from? What is the essence or lesson of what they are saying? Can I incorporate an aspect of their beliefs into my own? And with time, these should birth some incredible insights. Now, lastly, step number 5, the most important step of them all, is think macro, act micro, or the art of zooming out. You are a perspective vessel, and your actions, whether you are conscious of it or not, has a ripple effect on the world. I wish I had this anecdote at the top of my mind, but I remember there's some like fun fact where like a butterfly flapping its wings, if it flies in a certain location, it can like destroy an entire iceberg or like something, right? It's something insane that the little flapping of a butterfly's wings can cause such destruction if it flies in a certain part of the world. And so as you open your mind to embody a more holistic perspective, your actions should follow suit. So you want to think big picture, forget the petty details, and act. And so we're closing in on the ending here, but please do not just like take this video and like not do anything with it, right? I feel like everyone can benefit from some form of mental expansion or opening their mind. And so along this path, you are going to encounter problems, right? When you open your mind, there's going to be some resistance there, and you need to become aware of that, and you need to solve those problems and make mistakes. That's how you improve. And you have to understand that the highest version of every single one of you, right, and the vision that you hold in your mind for that highest version of yourself is open-minded. So try to expand your mind to embody that identity. Try it this week. Really, try it this week. First, think about what you want in the future and who you have to become in order to get there, and then start trying to view situations from that perspective. So that is it for this one. A few plugs before we leave is that the first Solopreneur Sprints starts on February 7th. I'm starting this promotion now, but in short, if you want to create your niche of one, write 20 plus pieces of foundational content. We're literally going to write this all in the cohort. I'm going to write it with you. I'm going to be on the screen, and I'm going to be writing the actual posts showing you how I do it and the thought process that goes into it. And that's only one of the actual videos that's going to be in there. But then we're also going to go over a growth strategy where you don't have to pay anything. I'm just teaching you how to actually build relationships in the new economy, which is the digital world. It's not an emerging economy. It is the new economy. And so the other thing, if you're not interested in that, check out the 2-Hour Writer, which is everything I do for content writing, right? It's been my experiences from the 6 years ago when I first started marketing and then when I started freelancing and up until now, and how I have my content ecosystem in place to allow me to kind of just do what I enjoy for work. And the last thing is Modern Mastery, which is a private community with a Discord server where I'm in there helping everyone out, chatting things up. And then we also have a strategy library where there's trainings, articles, roadmaps, and there's just way too much for the price I have it at right now. So $5 to join, $27 a month after that. Check it out if you're interested, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I love doing YouTube outros. They're so fun. I remember all of it. But yeah, do all of that good stuff. Thanks. I appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed this one. Peace.